Man, I hate this intro. Why do I do it? Hey pals, how's it going? It's finally time for the Clueless review of Good Kid, M.A.A.D City. Yeah, I just had to listen to it a couple more times to make sure I'm getting all of it. And I still don't feel like I've uncovered everything there is about the album, of course, because I've only listened to it while reading the lyrics all the way one time through. Because the other times I would just have it on in my car and stuff and just get the vibe from that. So, got really nothing else to say. If you have any suggestions for the next Clueless review, leave it in the comments down somewhere under the mic. Let's start with the first song on the album. Alright, I gotta read the whole title for this one. Shireen, aka Master Splinter's daughter. So when I first listened to it, it kind of reminded me of the first song on The Wall. And just that vibe of a concept album, because The Wall starts with like a baby crying and that's like the beginning of the story. But this wasn't going for that, but it just popped in my head when I first listened to it. For a lot of these songs, I didn't really catch on to what exactly was going on until I saw the lyrics. But I liked how the intro set the precedent for the atmospheric beats that are going to go through the whole album. And with that intro, like spoken word part, it presents a religious perspective that kind of guides Kendrick's way of looking at things and his guilt through some of the stuff he does, and even when he looks back onto it. Yeah, I really liked the beat to this song. There's that like little piano in the background that goes like ding 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 as he's telling the story, and I thought that was really cool. I was into that. I was feeling it, and I just liked how it's a story you can tell right off the bat. I met her at a house party in El Segundo in Central. It's jumping right into it, and I just liked how it kind of reaches a climax at the end of the story as he goes to see her, and he's two guys in black hoodies come up to him. It's just like it reaches a point where like the tension's the highest when he brings that in. It's kind of like a turn. But yeah, I really like this song. It's one of my favorites on the album because it's like it was a good intro to the album too. Let's go on to the next song. Bitch, I'll kill my vibe. I don't know how to do it. Oh, I was trying to do another thing with this review. I'm trying not to look at the genius at all, so this is just my impressions of these songs. And I know I'm gonna skip and not know a bunch of shit, but if I miss anything, just leave a comment and I'll look at it and correct me on shit I don't know. The intro is really cool. It still brings up that religion aspect again. He definitely has an interesting singing voice when he does the hook, but it's the repetition of it gets catchy and stuck in your head. I'm sure that's one of his more popular songs too because of that. Obviously they're in LA, so he says a line, I can feel the new people around me just want to be famous. And they just found him and put him on stages. And this is supposed to be how he was feeling back then, so he's just trying to recapture his vibe. With a lot of these songs too, just like the M.A.A.D album, it's him looking back. So this is nostalgic too, as we'll see in other songs. But there's also a difference between M.A.A.D and Kendrick. Yeah, I just kind of like how the beat ends with those violins, gave it a little nice touch there. But I don't really know what else to say about this song, so I'm just gonna move on to next one, which is a backseat freestyle as he gets into the car with his friends, I guess. I didn't know really how to feel on first listen, but this was the first one of his songs that showed a faster flow, and it was kind of cool how the chorus kind of climbs. It ascends in the melody. All my life I want money and power to respect my mind. It goes up and down. I thought that was cool. Just an interesting thing. I don't know what I'm talking about. Out of context, I wouldn't like this song that much because it's just like him talking about getting bitches and stuff, which kind of falls into that cliche. But when you look at it in the context of the story, then it makes sense because it's from his point of view when he was 17. So this was just his attitude early in the story. The whole song takes on a new meaning from that perspective. Okay, so let's move on to The Art of Peer Pressure. And this one, for me, off first listen, that's when I first could see he has that different style of rapping, which, of course, I've been used to Nas after listening to him for a while. So he's my main point of comparison. And it had another atmospheric beat. The beat really complemented the scene he presented. It perfectly went hand in hand with the story. Obviously, I don't even have to say it, he's a good storyteller. And you can just, without even hearing anything, just looking at the lyrics, you can just tell. But the beats so far just work like I said, hand in hand with each other. That is a common theme of this album, is peer pressure and just pressure coming down on Kendrick in general and making him do things or pulling him to be someone he doesn't want to be. And they get into all sorts of trouble. Oh yeah, and at the end it kind of presents that scene where I guess Kendrick had some laced weed, so he was tripping. That's another thing about this album that's really cool, is how it was kind of connected by those dialogue bits, and like his mom calling him, or yeah, just like talking during a scene, which really helps to fit the story together. And then we're gonna go on to Money Trees. At first, I didn't know how to feel about this one. That's gonna be a repeating thing, because there was like 3 or 4 songs that just I would listen to it and I'd be like, all right, the beat is really cool, but yeah, I don't know how to feel about the song. Looking at the lyrics helped with that. I really liked the metaphor in this song, as like they view money as a tree that gives them shade, that is kind of a way out. Speaking about that difference between Kendrick and Nas was really straightforward to me. Like, Beats would just go into it and he'd just tell the story, but Kendrick gets a bit more metaphoric. Nas was more realistic, and Kendrick kind of goes into that, you know what I mean, trying to get to a higher or a deeper point with some of these metaphors. And yeah, that's a big difference, but it's something I appreciate when I look at the lyrics, because he ties that realism of the story in with these metaphors that kind of lift it to something different. So that's interesting to me. So let's move on to Poetic Justice. This song was one of my favorites on the album. I didn't know it was a sample from a Janet Jackson song, but I really liked the background voice, and I liked the flow of it and the hook, because Janet Jackson's voice obviously is really sensual, so it just kind of fits with what he's talking about, of course. And it gets a little emotional even, because Kendrick obviously feels something for Sherane or whatever, and he even like comes off as a bit of a romantic in some of this. A little romantic is like, it's like you looking in the mirror. Love is not just a verb. Like, all right, it's pretty self-explanatory, but I wasn't just expecting that, because it gets a little bit more into it than just thinking, because obviously you can see that he likes Sherane in a deeper way than just as, you know, a hookup. And it shows it by the way he writes that song. One of my favorites on the album. And then it continues the story at the end, where the two guys are just trying to get him to say where he's from, I guess, because if you're from a different place, like a different part of the city, and that's where a different gang is, and that can cause some trouble. And that's interesting, because this was one of those songs where I didn't know how to feel, but I just liked it so much more after looking at the lyrics. And, you know, I don't mind that he points out the fact that he tells stories in a poet. Sometimes you don't need to say that, or like, oh, I'm going to sit here and tell you a story. Like, you don't have to keep pushing it in your face in the song. I mean, in a poem, that, oh, I am a poet, and I am writing this because I am a poet and I'm good at it. He can pull it off because it doesn't make it seem like he's bragging about it. All right, so now let's move on to Good Kid. I really liked the beat to this song. It kind of gives off this like hypnotic vibe. There pops up the word vibe again. And here's some of that subtle synth in the background, which was cool. This one is pretty straightforward from... Well, I don't want to mean straightforward, just conceptually looking at the song, it's straightforward, but obviously it deals with heavy stuff. Obviously a cop profiling him, and he's caught between gang life, and the cop doesn't give a shit. You're just going to put that pressure onto him. Also, when he points up red and blue, that takes on 2 meanings because of the gangs and like cop lights. Interesting how he ties those together, even though they're like opposing forces in a way. I don't know. I'm talking out my ass. I think another difference when I'm talking about how Kendrick brings up these like realistic situations, but kind of goes on this metaphoric tangent. He's more introspective than Nas. That's not a bad thing. It's just their style of rapping. And obviously he was influenced in some way by those 90s rappers, because we'll come up on one of those. Let us move on to Mad City. It was definitely more intense than Good Kid. Definitely contrasts with, like, Good Kid is kind of that slower synthy hypnotic beat, and then Mad City's the more intense one and like dramatic. Yeah, it kind of have this like two parts to it. It switches in the middle, and I liked the second part better on first listen, at least. Mad stands for Me and Angel on Angel Dust, which is referring to when he had the least marijuana. And the other part is My Angry Adolescence Divided, which I think acts as a better acronym. Kind of sums up everything. I think he brings up some really interesting points towards the end of the song. If he killed someone at 16, would you believe me? Or if he was innocent, you seen him walking down the street with a basketball and some now layers to eat, would you think of him as like any different? Or now that he says he's more intelligent, is that like a relief to me from how he formerly was? With Kendrick here, he's kind of like Nas in that he's presenting things how they are, you know, in that realism point, but he's not condemning it because he was part of it. So it still has that nostalgic point of view, but he knows it's not good too. He knows the way that him and his homies were acting weren't, you know, the right things to do, stealing shit. It's still how it is, and it's just a part of their lives, which is very similar to how Nas presented his reality. They're similar in that way, but like the LA style versus not LA, Compton style versus the New York style. And you can definitely make some cases for either way, comparing and contrasting them. So that's kind of what interests me about this, because the only artist I truly have a formed opinion on is Nas right now. Now let's move on to Swimming Pools. Obviously he was talking about drinking. I don't know, this song was pretty straightforward. I didn't have anything bad to say about it. It goes back into that more introspective thing as he talks to his conscience. This was a good song. It's just part of the album to me, I think. But I'm sure you guys have your own opinions on it. It's just about, you know, what alcohol can do to you and the pressure that you have to fit in a social situation to drink. And I'm sure all of us have been there. But who gives a shit? Grab a beer and drink, dude. No, I'm kidding. Just kidding. Kidding. All right, so then we're going to move on to Sing About Me. This song was pretty epic, just in length. It was an emotional song. That kind of wrestles if he should tell even like these stories, because this is after the point where someone got shot, a close friend of his got shot. He's just kind of wrestling with that, because in like the first verse, it's kind of this guy wanting him to sing about him in the song. But in the second verse, it's talking about, I guess, another guy's sister, something like that, and who died, but was kind of stuck in this life where she had to do some bad stuff. And he's like, don't talk about that. You know, you're going to ruin that. And then Kendra's like, well, I have to represent it, you know. It's a story that needs to be told. And even in the third verse, Kendrick is like, well, I hope I did enough to have someone else sing about him, I guess. So I guess it's just like that never-ending cycle. Oh, this is the one where the Nas line comes in. Maybe because I'm a dreamer and sleep is the cousin of death. Oh, and he brings up Brenda's got a baby. I guess it's kind of similar to that. I'm starting to make connections here, know the references. Just for shits and giggles, I'm gonna look up Section 80. That's just his first studio album. He doesn't, so that'd be a whole nother thing, because I have no idea about it. But I guess somebody responded to him making a song about that is something that happened. Yeah, that's just basically the whole conflict about the first part of the song. It's about whether or not he should portray some people if they want him to or not. All right, and then the song takes a turn into "I'm Dying of Thirst," and yeah, again it's emotional, and they're all tired of running. I also knew another reference where Kendrick's like, I'm like Trey, that's Cuba Gooding Jr. I have seen Boys in the Hood, so he kind of compares himself to that Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character, who was more straight edged. This kind of just brings back the religion part, because apparently in the scene after his homie got shot, somebody came out and just says, you know what you guys are, you're dying of thirst, and then she tells them to repeat what was said at the beginning, so that just kind of ties everything together, which was really cool. And then tells them that your real life should start next, and that's with the next song, Real. So Real is just kind of Kendrick coming to terms with everything, knowing what he stands for, talking about loving himself, which is a nice message. The hating on money, power, and respect, which doesn't make him real, as he says. His father says responsibility is what makes you real, and family, and God. So that basically ties everything together. And the whole thing with the dominoes, that was kind of funny. I laughed every time I heard that part. But yeah, this kind of ties the album together. This is the ending of the story for me. Right, but there's still one more song, which was Compton, which was a nice message. It was nice to hear. Like it wasn't like a depressing ending to it. It's still, at least as a character, Kendrick changed into something that's better for him. So that's nice to see. I'm glad. But it's still his life though, and it's where he came from. So again, you can never run away from that. But at least he didn't make the turn full on into like being into the gangs or anything. He was just always around it, and it was just a part of him. Then we'll move on to Compton. This song kind of felt like what the last song on Nas's album felt to me, like the rolling over the credits song, or like the coda, because the narrative's over really, but this just kind of cements him as this new King Kendrick, as he calls him, and just like a celebration of his town for its good and bad. And Dr. Dre is there, of course, who is also from Compton, so it just kind of brings everything together, the history of rap music in Compton, and this new dawning for new, I guess, rebirth for Kendrick as king. I liked the beat. The like drums were really heavy in it, so that kind of added to it. Overall, I really like the beats on the album. It was like, I have to say vibe. That's the only word I can think of. A different vibe from M.A.A.D, because M.A.A.D was real jazzy and had just like the drums, the bass, and like a piano. But this had a bunch of synths, and some of it laid back, some of it more forward. But yeah, so overall for this album, I liked it, obviously. I haven't really say anything bad about it. It's really long. That was the thing that also took me a while to get to this review, is I wanted to be able to like at least speak something about it and not look like a fool. So that's why I tried to keep listening to it over and over again. I still don't feel like I know it very well. The only drawback to me on some of the songs, like I love the narrative, it's very clear, is that it still kind of falls into that some of the cliches for me. With songs like Backseat Freestyle, like there's just a couple of those songs that don't reach the heights that the other songs do, if that makes sense. And it's not like with M.A.A.D where it's just part of the whole. It's just kind of like it goes through like waves in the album as far as songs that were of interest to me. So I love the ambition of the album, basically. It's not consistent in that way, I guess. So that's the only reason I'm not going to give it 5 out of 5 beers. I'm giving it a 4.5. But maybe with time and I listen to it more, it would be at that point. But then again, we have hindsight for M.A.A.D too, and it's considered one of the classics now. But I think people do think this album is a classic too. But maybe with that more time and listening, I will get to that point. I just, from what I heard, I really like it. And if I do to Pimp a Butterfly, this was definitely a good foundation for him, because I really liked his style. It's just the length and it's not even that it was inconsistent. It's just like some songs were so much better than the other songs. So that was my thing. Like for "Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe," it comes after "Shireen," which I think was a way better song. And I get that it's still part of it. Like he's at a party and stuff, and like that's supposed to represent how he was feeling. But I don't know. That's just my opinion. And I know I'm probably gonna get lots of hate for that. But hey, I finally did it. I finally did the review. And if I missed anything, tell me in the comments. I really enjoyed the album though, so this is a true 4.5. Like on some reactions, I'll give it a 4.5 just because I like the video or something. This is a true 4.5 in that it was really, really good, but it wasn't like perfect, I guess is what I'm saying. So 4.5 beers out of 5, which I think that's a really good score. But you know, what do I know? You know, what do I know? Leave some suggestions for what I should do next. And as always, I appreciate you all. Thanks for watching, and cheers, pals. That was a good ride, a good story to join, you know, to kind of be a part of in a way through the lyrics and the songs. So yeah. 2 thumbs up would be probably a good indication of how I feel.